Want to do that? Look at that. Just push continue.
All right, everyone ready?
Fire
Hopefully
when
we'll be
ready.
joined by others. All right, well, I will kick the meeting off. This is Monday, June 14th, Flag Day, 2021. We are commencing the Charter Review Committee of the Town of Scituate at 7:43 p.m. And we have made great progress in our Hollywood Week, as I call it, our secondary review.
I could correct you, Karen, it's 5:43.
What did I say? 4?
7.
7. You're somewhere in the
Sorry.
Atlantic
I just
Ocean.
wanted to be accurate for the record.
So amended, the meeting, it commences at 5:43, and it also reminds me that I'm supposed to say we are operating still under the emergency measure by the governor, and as such, this meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Scituate Community Television following the meeting, or you can participate by Zoom. And if you like to participate, please follow the link at the town agenda. I will entertain a motion for acceptance of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Ms. Minier, seconded by
Second.
Seconded, yeah.
Mr. Volker. We're supposed to take a roll call vote. So Ray,
Here.
Marla,
Here.
Andres? No, not here. Acceptance
Aye.
of agenda. Andres?
Yeah.
And me with agenda is accepted. And on the agenda, the first item is we were going to take up the very robust conversation of section 4.2, which is the hiring and removal of the town administrator. Before we launch into that, I just want to update the committee that good news is our intern, Mr. Brett Bilgeau, who may sound familiar to Marla because he was many years ago an Eagle Scout who built our swing at the library.
Oh,
He
nice.
has joined us as our intern. Bad news is I might have killed him because his first assignment to onboard was to go and to listen to 3 past meetings and do the minutes. And I warned him that it was bad, and he agreed that it was bad. And at 11 this morning, he said that he was running late and he would get them to us. And I have not heard from him since. So we might have killed him. So good news is I have full confidence that Brett will muddle his way through and we will have those minutes. The next thing is I've updated our Google Doc somewhere to the most current minutes. And it's the beginning of our red line version, which is going to be, thing we're really going to have to pour over. So the plan is Brett's going to catch us up. We're going to update that Google. And by the time we get through with Hollywood Week on this, we should be able to put them all together and really start talking about a red line. So excited that we're on schedule. So, I'm sorry I can't introduce him to you, but I will drag him next time to the meeting, kicking and screaming. Okay, so 4.2, we have had many conversations about the appointment of our town administrator. So I have 8 piles of paper here. And have already done a bunch of changes to it. I guess what we want to talk about, let me look at Michael's. I wish Michael were here. So Michael's comments are, discuss, should this be included and spelled out in the charter? So the basic question, do we want to detail how you go about hiring and firing in the charter? Does it belong there? Have you guys thought about that at all? Everyone's reading.
Well, if it doesn't work, it's easier to change the bylaws than the charter.
Yes. So we had originally agreed that there be some language that spells out the removal. We talked about having, our charter, I don't think says it has to be a supermajority to select, and that we like that. Right now, the Select Board has the full authority of hiring their TA.
Yeah, I think the objective was if whether it's in the charter or in the bylaws, either place, that it was, in detail somewhere so that there was transparency as to the process.
Okay, so the priority is, okay. Transparency.
So that people understand what the process is when it's undertaken, so that there's, removing room for ambiguity.
So I would propose that we think of the things that we think are essential in the charter. For an example, to me, I think it's important to say a supermajority needs to, like, it should be 4-1 minimum. And that to me should be carved in stone.
Then should that not, if the charter is harder to change than the bylaws, correct?
Right, so it's what things do we want carved in stone? And then I would think sort of the process and transparency, most of that really belongs in the bylaw, because if we screw it up, we can have, it's easier to change. That would be my sort of out of the box proposal on that.
I would agree.
I
with
have a
that,
note that we
Go ahead,
talked
Bob.
about if the TA that we want to remove requests a public hearing, that happens.
Yeah, so let's do hiring and then firing, because I think they're different conversations.
Right.
So on the hiring, we're saying, does everyone agree with a supermajority as,
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Supermajority belongs in the, I have a pros and cons list, I love it. Okay, and so to Marla's point, we did talk, I believe, about a public hearing element for the interviews, which we do in practice anyway. Do we want that carved in stone, that interviews for the TA must be held at a public forum? Trying to see
What would
I
be
don't
the
think-
reason to not have it open, have it open to the public? Is there a reason that would be a problem?
Well, I think the complication, now that I say that out loud, the complication is when you advertise for the position, right? You get, if you're lucky, you get a pile of applicants.
Some of whom may be TAs in other communities.
Right, and that group and that initial vetting is done by a subcommittee. I mean, Nicole had talked about this. The school committee does the same thing. So there's different people appointed to the hiring, what's it called? You know what I'm saying? The group that's in charge with us, the recruiting committee. And so there's no quorum, so they can do it in private. They vet that group and come down with a short list. And once they're on the short list, then everything becomes public, mostly for that reason. It's like, if you're the superintendent in Cohasset, you don't want them knowing you're looking to leave unless you're shortlisted. So now I'm gonna backtrack and say, we're gonna get into the weeds if we try to put that in the charter. So the public hearing portion of the hiring, should we put that in the bylaw?
Probably should be somewhere.
Yeah. I think, as Andrew said, it's like priority is transparency. And I think if we outline all of that detail in the bylaw, or recommend to the bylaw committee that when they do.
yeah, I don't think it has to be carved in stone, but it definitely, there should, given the, I'm gonna call it the public role of the TA, if they're not willing to do a public interview, I gotta question their capabilities to do the job.
100%. Oh, yeah.
Saying,
It's the most important position in town.
Yep.
Okay.
whether somebody knows you're looking or not, right? It's like, that's up to that other place to figure it out.
Okay, the other note Michael's got here is charter will be the dominant rule versus contract. Contract should include language that refers to the charter being a superior document.
Agree 100% with that.
Okay.
Because the idea is that somehow a town administrator's contract supersedes what the town governing document has in it. I don't see how that flies.
Right.
I
Right.
have a
because
note here
Contracts
that
are agreed
says,
by 5 people, not the entire town.
I have a note here that says the charter supersedes private control. What did I mean?
I think that's what you meant, is that if the charter doesn't, then the 5 of us
Right,
just make a deal with the new town administrator. Nobody else can say anything about it.
Yeah, the documents fundamentally have to be aligned. You can't have something that would grant some right that the charter says, no, you can't have, or something like that.
Right, so let's say we put in a, a removal section in the charter. We can't write a contract that says Article XYZ, a removal shall not be bearing on this contract.
But I guess in that case, right, it should be, well, then it should also be consistent with the bylaws, correct?
Yes,
So should we have essentially the TA's contract or whatever should be consistent with both the charter and the bylaws? And that should be carved in stone.
put that in the charter,
Yeah,
like that, yeah.
carved in stone in the chart, in the charter, that it has to be consistent with these two, otherwise it's not a valid contract, or that particular section could be deemed invalid.
Yeah,
You
so.
don't necessarily have to throw out the
must
whole
be
document, but you could throw out that section.
with charter and bylaws. And if not, charter and bylaws supersede.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just 2 things. We gotta write all right, bylaws. Committee would also want to explore adding language outlining the process, how to hire a TA and codifying in charter. I think we've all just said we'd rather, that makes more sense in the bylaw.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. And the overriding is transparency. Committee liked the idea of spelling out how to hire, so there's no confusion. Elements should include, okay, that's the same thing. Okay, so that goes in the bylaw. Under hiring, is there anything else that we want to, so we're gonna have to add a section on hiring that just says these 2 things.
Right, so there would be a language in the charter that says that the method or process for hiring shall be laid out in the bylaws. Right, that's what we're agreeing to?
Yeah,
Yep, that makes good
Okay.
sense.
Okay, yeah, I'm good.
writing it down. Okay, so the 3 things we said, we need a new section on hiring the TA that requires a supermajority of the select board to approve. That the TA contract must be consistent with charter and bylaws, and if not, supersedes, and that the method of hiring shall be laid out in the bylaws. Those 3 things as a new section, basically. Okay. Those were Michael's notes on 4.2, which is remarkable.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Right, but so does anyone have anything in their margins that we missed? I'm looking at mine, and I think we've covered everything that was in there at one point or another.
And I have in my notes that removal, in essence, says the same thing that we just said for hiring.
Right, so let's move on to removal.
Which is another section then.
Right, so we need to add that section, right? Because it doesn't exist now. Well, let me ask the question. Do we agree we need to add a section on how to remove?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree too.
Yeah.
And when we
Fairness.
originally talked about it, we looked at other examples. Like Long Meadow has section 5.5, which is ABC, which details how to remove the town, they have a manager, but town manager from office. notice, public hearing, and the actual removal. They have a whole page outlining.
Yeah, Scott had the same kind of thing.
Okay, so we know we want to add a section, and we should refer to language in both of those.
Yes, I think that's crucially important, because without, having that in place, someone could argue that, there's no due process or notice of that, what the rules of the road are. And, eventually you're probably, if the majority wants the TA gone, that person's going to be gone, but what are we exposing the town to? So I think we're right on track. That's very important.
So let me ask you the nuts and bolts question. So we're of the mind that the hiring should be a supermajority, 4-1.
Yes,
Do we think that a removal requires supermajority?
Yes.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
certainly would be consistent.
No, I'm just looking because in Long Meadow, it's just a majority, which is interesting. And it goes into like the weeds about how to suspend and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so supermajority. Now, the second question, just to make it mirror what we did with hiring, is do we want the process, public hearing, number of days for review, all of that stuff, do we want that in the charter or do we want that in the bylaw?
I think the bylaw, and then have the charter say that
You must do it.
you must follow the bylaw.
So it would mirror what we just said for hiring. Does
Right.
that? Are we all comfortable with that?
Yep. Just so long as it makes it, there's, you can't skip it. You have to do it. And it has to be in the bylaws, and everything's got to conform.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we redline the charter, it's gonna have a new section whatever it is, section 4.3A, whatever. And it'll say hiring, 4.3B, removal. And they're not gonna be really big, they're just gonna say, here's the rules, follow the bylaws, you gotta do this.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
that
it
works.
doesn't need to be more
Or
complicated
Probably
than it.
something to the effect that the procedure for, in this case, removal shall be followed as outlined in the bylaws.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to get that bylaw committee up and running so that we can fix all this stuff. Okay, great. That's section 4.2. There's one, wait, I tagged something. Nope, we just talked about it. Look at us. Okay. And there is nothing else highlighted in Michael's summary in section 4. Do you guys want to just flip through and see if you have anything that on, well, we talked about acting. So we did add, and we added language about subject to the town administrator will be subject to an annual review. Where's the, too much paper. Oh, here we go. So on the red lines, right, I just want to make sure it got in there. Yeah, so we have section O, select board shall provide for review of job performance of the town administrator twice in the first year of the new contract and annually thereafter, and shall at least in summary form be a public record. And then the only question on that was, does it belong here or in the select board? Might belong in the
Select board, what do you mean by select board?
in the section where it's select board's duties and responsibilities. Because it's really the select board's responsibility to conduct these reviews of the town administrator.
I could go either way on it.
Yeah, okay, so it's in there and highlighted, so when we go back through.
I think the reason, the only reason I would include it in the town administrator section is because that's where, you would, and when it gets to all of the items related to that position, right? That would be important. You'd find it more easily found there than if it's inside the select board section.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, and then we added a P, which is the town administrators, make sure that we have insurance on everything. That was something else we talked about at one point.
Proper insurance is
Section
important.
42M, we added all operational expenditures.
Yep, that's in there.
Yep, good.
Did we resolve an L question? Should the threshold amount be included in bylaws? This is about contracts. I know we talked about that several times, and I don't remember if we resolved our comfort level. So right now, L says the town administrator is responsible for bidding contracts. All contracts or anything exceeding a fixed amount by the board shall be subject to approval. Oh, I guess we did talk about that.
We did, I think we were okay with as long as the number was documented somewhere.
Right, so that comes out and that. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Again, just so that there's, it's transparent and everybody knows what it is.
Right, and we didn't want it in the contract because it can change depending on how we feel about the administrator or the budget or whatever. Okay, all right, well, that brings us to Article 5, buzzing along here. Which is, what is Article 5? Administrative organization. And under Michael's comments, general, which is 5.1, I think. Discuss bylaws state that authority is limited, bylaws and charter are in conflict over TA scope and authority. And it says the bylaws state that the authority is limited to any activity not under jurisdiction of another elected body. And our question was, should this language be in the charter? Yes.
I was of the opinion that, yeah, it should be in the charter just to remove any, let's call it areas of conflict, because it sounded like in our past discussions there had sometimes been discrepancies as to who had control over what.
Yeah,
And for the sake of removal of all doubt,
yeah. So where would that, I'm looking at the bylaws and the. Oh, hello, dogs. My dogs have come to join the meeting. Does anyone know where the bylaw states that? Let's see.
like, I don't know, Alex, for 200.
My bylaws are really hard to read. It's hard to read these bylaws.
Do you have paper or electronic?
Paper.
Property. General, I would think it's under general provision. Let's see.
Was it spending authorities?
No, you know what? It's under the town administrator. That's right. So that's where it was. So in the town administrator's powers and duties, it says under A, town administrators' power and duties shall include, in addition to those set forth in the charter, any reasonable assignment, blah, 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 that does not conflict with the powers of other town officials and multiple body member bodies or the charter. So we wanted, I think what we're saying is we want sort of a companion statement like that in the charter. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, if it's in
Yes.
here, it should be in the charter since it references the charter.
Yeah.
And I will be right back.
Okay. Does that then go under the town administrator though, not under 5? Where does that live? I would think it belongs really under the town administrator section.
Well, that's where it is in the bylaws, right?
Yes, it is.
It makes
Yeah.
sense.
Then why not just put it, put it there for consistency purposes?
LMNOPQ. So
Yeah.
Q
Yeah,
Q would be mere bylaw language. Sorry, I have to say this out. Regarding TA powers. Okay,
Yes.
okay. I'm gonna just write section 20320A. Okay. Got it. And then, oh, wait a minute, I think I'm missing it. I'm missing something because my page for Michael goes from Article 5A to I. Crap, does anyone have their printout? I think maybe missing a page.
You say 5A, 51A to, or what are we looking at? Bylaws or charter?
I'm looking at Michael's I'm all messed up here. Hold on. I have clerical issues. My stapling has been done incorrectly here.
Blame the intern.
Not here to defend himself.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think actually this was operator error. So I think I'm missing a page in my Michael notes. Crap. So he wrote Article 5. And maybe that's just, he says reference bylaw 2320. Oh, that's what we just did that. Okay, cool. All right, number 2 was the emergency plan, which we talked about last time. And we discussed that it should be that some executive board function should at least have their eyeballs at some point on all their emergency plans. And now, so the question is, does that belong in the charter or does that belong in the bylaws? In the bylaws, there's very little under, oh, that's appointments. Sorry, I'm looking in the bylaws for. The bylaws don't say a ton about. Let's see.
I'm just going to throw this out there.
Yeah.
Given the increased awareness, concern, general attention to, I'm going to call it safety matters of all varieties, it should probably be in the charter and not the bylaws.
Well, so then.
And the only reason I say that is that this is, I'd argue, one of the key I think it's a key responsibility for the town elected officials to, as part of their jobs. Because it gets to the heart of what the administration is supposed to do for the citizenry of the town.
The budget and keep the people safe.
Yeah,
Provide
reliable power, clean water, drivable roads, and safety, right? And safety takes a lot of different forms, right? But yes.
My question will be for council. on the implications for the board. I mean, because I think Marla said at the last meeting, it's like, yeah, we all agree that you need somebody that you can say, this is your job to have your eyeballs on this. But I'm not an expert in public safety. I'm not an expert in fire safety, right? So what if things go sideways?
And as I think as we discussed last time, right, it's not that you are it's a political process, like all things are, right? But it's to make sure that from the point of view is that they've taken various things into consideration and that they haven't overreached in certain other areas, and that it's consistent with the governing approach of the town. And there isn't something just, let's call it harebrained. And it's not, and that the select board isn't validating the plan because they don't necessarily have expertise to validate it, but they can at least question it and probe and explore different things within the plan. Because they inherently, it has implications in a variety of different ways, both intended and unintended.
So if we are going to memorialize that in the charter, I would think that belongs in 3.2, which is the
Powers and duties.
powers and duties of the board.
I'd be fine with that.
Because we don't, let's see, because under
I don't think it necessarily,
5, yeah,
I don't think it necessarily goes into 5, which is more of an organizational.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that's how. Well, let's say a second though. So the personnel plan, no, you know what? I may take that back because 5.2 is personnel plan, town administrators responsible for putting together a personnel plan, right? And it has to be, and it's spelled out separately, probably. Okay, so why wouldn't we then say, because this is, yeah, you know what, it may belong under administrative, because that's as you say, it's like, we're not gonna come up with it. So why wouldn't we insert in here, section 5.7, emergency management plans, and say appropriate, something like, for all emergency response plans in the town, the appropriate personnel will develop and the select board will something, will approve or however it is. The responsibility for approving, there you go, responsibility for approving all emergency response plans in the town will rest with the select board. Or something along those
Words
lines.
to that effect, yes.
Yeah, and we also want to have a review after a certain period of time.
Right, we did talk about making sure that it was fresh.
Yeah, I think it was like at least like a biannual kind of review.
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
Because I think that was the idea, was that if you've got a new person on the select board, you didn't necessarily overwhelm them right out of the box. And was it 2-year terms for the select board?
3-year terms,
Right.
3-year terms. Yeah, so at a minimum, right, you'd have some overlap, right?
That's
and then if we do it as, don't try to define emergency response management, who knows what next year's emergency is gonna be? It leaves it to the professionals to
Just
say,
let your
hey,
imagination run. Just let your imagination run wild, Karen.
no. You might end up with bears in town.
Yes, he traveled to Norwell and then Marshfield.
Oh my God, I gotta tell you, quick aside, I get this text on Saturday. When you get a text from anybody in, town leadership on a Saturday, it's never good. And I was like, oh, and I look at it and I'm like, and it was from the chief of police saying, if this year couldn't get weird enough, just want you to know there's a bear in town.
Look, everybody knows if you don't poke the bear, you're fine. And
Exactly.
I lived in Colorado, and we lived in Colorado. My kids chased a bear out of the garage and were captured photos of it. And I had my wife on the phone when she's at work telling her, "Yeah, Mom, we're chasing a bear,
Yep,
a
yep.
black bear."
Got it, Mom. All
Yeah,
right.
that is the new emergency.
So
keep
yeah,
us all
so to that point, we don't need to define what all these
No.
things are. We just
No,
say emergency
no,
response.
no.
Okay. Okay. And biannual. Okay. Wait, I lost the thread. Okay. So we talked about that. That's good. I love that. How often reviewed? We talked about that. Select board approval. Yes. Okay, good. All right. Section 5(1)(b). Should the select board have discretion over, wait a minute, sorry, I'm in the wrong section here. Or should it be mandatory? Review of administrative code. Where are we?
That's 5(1)(b).
Okay, after consultation. Yeah, so this says we decide that we need a Department of Bear Management. We have the authority to reorganize that under the Conservation Department or whatever. And then we have to have a holding hearing and that it'll go to town meeting for codification.
Yes, and we changed may to shall.
Where was that? Sorry.
That's a 5(1)(b) second line right after administrator.
Shall. Okay, that one got missed.
The
Thank
town
you.
meeting shall vote only to approve and disapprove the plan,
Yep, instead of it being May. Yep, okay.
and may not vote to amend or alter it.
Okay. So Michael's question on there is that should that be select board discretion? I would argue it's not really discretion, it's leadership and it's put to town meeting.
Right.
And I don't understand, or should this be mandatory? I don't understand what that means. Why he said that.
Well, we're making it mandatory, aren't we?
Yeah, the shall,
Yeah.
shall addresses that, right?
Yep, okay.
Rather may do it, they have to do it. They shall.
Yeah, okay. I am
Okay.
gonna propose a bear constable.
There.
I'm gonna nominate Rich Munir as the bear
Well,
constable.
Interestingly, in November during the first snowfall, when we were walking on the Crosby property, we saw a very large print, much larger than Rich's glove. And it definitely was a bear print. And he put it out to his trail buddies and they scoffed, but there was a
See?
bear.
Rich Munir for bear
I was
constable.
with him. We have photos of it.
I love it. I hope he took a picture.
We have a picture. I'll send it to you if you would like.
I would. I'm gonna send it to Ruth Thompson with your permission. Early sightings of Boo Boo before hibernation.
I'll take a bear over mice.
Or turkeys or deer.
Okay, so 5.6 public maintenance, public building maintenance. I think we started this conversation today with that. Proposal by Mike to make clear school committee only has input on school facilities. Charter language is currently ambiguous. This is all part of that bigger conversation. Oh, look. Ha! I already wrote that in. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself here. Okay. 5.6 building maintenance. Yeah, so this was that whole conversation about facilities versus, you know, is the like to Marla's point, is the library responsible for the library grounds? Does that go in their budget? The school's responsible for their grounds. Does that go in their budget? Do we want it all to live in facilities and have them be responsible? You know, do we want to spell any of that out in the charter? Because we know we haven't got it right yet. We got it better.
Well, I was looking at the bylaws and noticed that the TA is responsible for the maintenance of school grounds and public lands.
Yep,
and all public buildings.
yep, that's where we ended up, because the last time you guys had this conversation, they said, this is silly, let's put it under one umbrella. And
Right.
one point of responsibility.
Which is why we hired Kevin Kelly, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So in the charter, it says the select board and the school committee may from time to time meet or otherwise communicate to assure the proper maintenance of all school buildings. And I think that last sentence of the first paragraph was the problematic one. Like, well, what does that mean? Who's responsible?
Not clear.
How do we fix it?
Does it
I thought
mean,
we.
I mean, I'm just curious, I'm just curious, I'm just trying to figure out what this sentence means. Does it mean that the board, that the select board and the school committee meet together? Or do they meet among themselves?
Yeah, it's really not, it really isn't.
Very unclear.
Right, it's like, who's responsible, period.
Yeah, and I thought in
Yeah.
one of our discussions that where the line had been clearly drawn, that the school committee was responsible for everything inside, let's call it the
Yes.
four walls. And
Yep.
then everything outside the four walls fell to the town administrator by default. That's what I recall, but my memory sometimes.
No, that's right. That is how it is
Exactly, yeah.
set up
That's my
right now. But that's very fluid, because we keep.
But it
trying-
didn't work before, which is why we changed it and hired the public facilities manager.
Right,
And the public facilities manager reports to the town administrator, correct?
correct,
So the town administrator's by default still responsible.
correct.
Or is he a DPW person, or is he parallel to the head of the DPW?
Kevin is he's director of facilities. And facilities, I think, org chart is under DPW, just like highway,
Right, okay,
all those things. So Kevin, technically he reports to the head of DPW, who reports to the TA.
okay. Yeah, I was curious about
I
where
think
that,
on an org chart. I
yeah,
think
where
that's
the
all.
org chart went.
Well, I guess you could say, to the TA or his or her or their designee. Right? However you wanted to define it.
All right, I'm a little confused. I'm looking at powers, additional powers, duties, and responsibilities of the town administrator under in C there. This is in the bylaws, I believe.
Okay,
He shall be responsible for the maintenance and repair of all public buildings except schools and historical sites. He shall be responsible for the maintenance of school grounds and public lands. Seems to conflict with what we're saying.
right, which is a whole separate problem, because there's a whole bunch of those things in the bylaws and the. Yeah, I don't think that was updated after the facilities. The bylaws, I don't think got updated after they
Well, okay.
So
hired.
we need to
So
highlight
we're not
that.
following.
Yeah,
We need to highlight that section for bylaws.
yep.
Agreed.
I just wrote a big fix. I'm gonna literally get my highlighter out on that one.
Yeah, that's a big star that needs to go on there.
Okay. So. I think the language that's in the charter right now reflected my guess is it reflected that conversation of, we're not doing it well by having, like, let's put it under one umbrella. But let's not ignore the fact that in reality, I mean, a lot of our buildings are school buildings, and, of course, the principal and the school committee should have some say. Let's say the facilities director came in and said, we think it'd be much easier just to asphalt over everything. Now, they're gonna have to have a conversation with the school committee about, does that make sense for programming or whatever, right? So I think that's, to me, I'm guessing that's why that language, I don't know why they have the last sentence, the meeting. I would think the last sentence is just redundant to that conversation in the first paragraph. Because it says,
Under
So-
consultation,
as the select board, the responsibility for all town buildings is the select board, period.
right,
Yep.
Okay? Then it says, we're gonna talk to the school committee and determine the manner and such.
I don't, yeah, the responsibility shall be assumed. That doesn't seem consistent with what we've talked about.
Yeah. So I think the first sentence stays, makes sense, because it's saying who's responsible.
so maybe the second sentence needs to be removed and the third one stay, saying that the Board of Selectmen, I think that if there's a big deal to do with the exterior of the school buildings, that the school committee certainly should be consulted.
Right.
And you could change the may to, from may
Should.
to shall.
Yeah,
Shall, right, so remove the second sentence. Retain the third. Change may to shall.
yeah,
And from time to time, that seems
yeah.
deliberately
Not good.
ambiguous. I go, wouldn't you just say, you know, at least annually?
Or,
Annually makes sense because you're doing the budget. Right?
Yeah, just saying.
Shall meet, I think annually makes sense because then it's spelled, then you're required to have that conversation.
Yeah, at least once a year.
That's, it's not it's still put, the responsibility still lies completely with the board, select board. But they must meet. Yeah, school committee, yeah.
Because just theoretically, right, the school committee and the select board could get crosswise and not talk with each other, correct?
Yes, that could happen.
Okay, yeah, then that's why
Right,
you want
but the
that's why you'd want to force it.
So the way this is written, however, says we'll call that meeting. Okay, Nicole, come in, we're gonna have this meeting. They say, we absolutely need to do this, 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 and this. And the select board can go through the whole process and go, no, we're not doing any of that. Because we're not compelled to act.
Right.
But we will take their concerns under advisement as mandated by the charter.
Yeah,
To meet or
hopefully.
otherwise communicate to assure, okay. Yeah,
Hopefully
so if they
doing that
decide that
like-
we're not speaking, they can send us, otherwise communicate, they can send us a binder. Which is fine, okay. You know, in reality, most of the stuff in the exterior goes through the capital budget anyway. But, okay. I
but
like that.
not general maintenance, which is the concern, my concern, and the concern of a lot of other people. I'm not the
That's
only one that
true.
has this
You know,
concern.
Which would be ground, you know, just the
Yeah.
general maintenance of the grounds.
Right. Like if all of a sudden all the bubblers aren't working. Is that capital or is that maintenance?
Or if all the paint on the windows is all peeling.
Right. Or, you know, maybe the windows fell out, something like that.
Yeah, or there's rust all over the jungle gym or whatever.
Yep. Okay. All right, so we've removed the second sentence, we've changed to shall meet annually from May and kept the third sentence. Any other changes to that? Nothing in this section. I want to just read the next sentence, next paragraph. So what do we think of the next sentence, or the next paragraph? Why wouldn't we just say,
That takes it away from the public buildings person.
But it says, of the maintenance personnel in school buildings who perform so-called ordinary maintenance. What does that even mean?
so you know what this means? This means the school committee can't look, if we took that sentence out, or that paragraph out, right? And says we're responsible, then they can say, fine, then we're firing all of our custodians. You guys are gonna have to take care of that. And practically speaking, that's a bad idea, because, you know, the custodians are embedded in the community of each school. And the principal knows, hey, you know, I'm gonna call the custodian because the toilet's leaking or whatever. They're there for a very good purpose, and they're much better supervised internally.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's always the concern, is you don't wanna say, we didn't wanna pull that, I don't think they are. I think the budgets are in the individual schools as part of their personnel. It's like, I think it's more of a budget question. It's like, oh, who supervised them? Who pays that budget line?
Yeah, I thought everything inside the four walls was already school committee, right? So isn't this?
It is,
So
right.
this is consistent with that, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Ordinary maintenance.
that's how I interpret it.
But it's what the first sentence is of 5.6 is the responsibility maintenance of all town buildings.
And grounds.
Right, so let's just talk about the buildings for a second. So that means town is responsible for Jenkins School. Maintenance,
Exterior.
doesn't say exterior. It
I
says
know.
maintenance
That's
of-
how we were drawing the box, so to speak, or the fence line in our discussions.
I know. Well, then, do we want to define in the charter? Do we want that sentence to say for the exterior maintenance?
But
We want
it's
to limit it that way?
No,
only,
I don't think so.
but it's only exterior maintenance on school buildings, correct?
Yes,
It's the school is this weird exception, right? And everything else, it's, you know, say like the new senior center, right? The town's responsible for the inside and the outside.
Well, what if the boiler breaks in one of the schools and
yeah, see, I think it's all town responsibility, but functionally, the way it works is, and I think that's what the second paragraph is trying to define, is
Yeah.
we don't want to get in a pissing contest of who is hiring and supervising the custodian in the interior of those buildings, because they're so integral. I'm
Right.
guessing that's why that's there.
and ordinary maintenance is sweeping the floors and keeping the building clean.
Yeah.
and-
Minor repairs.
Yeah, minor.
Ordinary maintenance, yeah.
Not repairing the roof or replacing windows.
No,
That's,
that would be capital.
Yeah, changing out the furnace,
Okay,
whatever.
so I like the first sentence in that, because I think that clearly says what we're saying. It's like, okay, so, you know, Mr. John and at Hatherley, that's his domain, right? But then the last sentence is, it is intention of this provision, standards of work performed will be jointly established by school department and the select board.
Have you ever gotten involved in that? As a select board member?
No. But that's really interesting because, you know, when we had it, I honestly, I thank goodness for going through this exercise. I wish I'd done it 3 years ago. Because we get into those fights about why the hell are you guys aren't keeping up with the caulking and the windows are leaking. You know, that's ordinary maintenance and now it's capital.
Yeah,
This actually,
True.
the way it's written is, we can go in there and say, you have to do that. And in the past, the common knowledge was, oh, school committee's got to worry about that. And that's not what this says.
that's right. So then you get involved with the school budget, which can be moved around in many ways. They don't have to really stick to their line items. And if an educational purpose is more costly than a maintenance purpose, then the maintenance gets short shrift.
Yep.
And that's been the
Always
history
been the
of-
rub, right?
That's been the history of this town, that they put their funds.
Put those damn kids first, right?
I didn't realize
they
they had that much
should.
I didn't realize they had that much flexibility in their budget.
They have a lot of
have-
flexibility in their budget.
That's extraordinary.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, the lion's share of their budget's fixed.
I
You know.
understand.
Yeah, because it's mostly personnel.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get
But
it.
it's just like ours. If we find at the end of the day, like, oh, look, we didn't use all our salt this year, so we don't need that extra 20,000 in DPW salt line, we can reallocate it to potholes. You
Yeah,
know,
understood. Yeah, it's I guess it's operational in capital,
Yeah.
right?
it's operational.
Yeah, if it all stays in the operational bucket, no problem. It's when you cross over between the two.
I think that last sentence is problematic because it doesn't define anything. You know, if this is our constitution and we're saying we're all gonna play nice in the sandbox and figure out what the I mean, I don't know, I think that's way too vague, that last sentence.
And that could cause a lot of offense
Yeah,
and create a lot of problems.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, if the select board came down on the school committee and said, you're not caulking the windows properly, you better get to it. The school committee would be really offended by that.
yeah, it's our job to take care of this building. Yeah, it's a very circular thing. It's pouring.
Yeah, it's pouring.
Huh, interesting.
Um,
Well, it's sometimes a little friction's good. Just saying.
So the other question that I have written here, which may handle some of these issues, is that do other towns have an appointed advisory board for their DPW? And do we want to have an DPW advisory board?
right, we did talk about that.
So I don't know whether that would help in this situation or just cause more antagonism, which we don't want to do.
Well, that's just, I think, my gut reaction is, you got school committee, you got select board, you got facilities. You want another whole body involved in that conversation?
Well, is there not? I
It's
thought
a
there
five-member board.
isn't there a town building inspector?
Yes,
Why wouldn't the town building inspector go to the schools and walk through the schools and basically say, like, you're deficient here, you're satisfactory here, and like, here's the list. Here it is.
I know,
I don't
I
think
don't
that's under
know,
his purview.
something like that happens. I don't think it's the buildings. Well, I don't know the answer to that.
I'm just saying, if the select board's responsible, right? Why wouldn't you
We
couldn't
need
you
to send in,
Can
right,
you direct the town building inspector? You need to go look at all the buildings in the town, including the schools, and you need to do it, annual review or whatever.
well, he does do that. I mean, we do have a very thorough facilities plan, which
Does that- it does-
required him.
But does he
to
do
go-
an actual inspection?
Yes,
All right, so.
yeah, I've got somewhere a document like this,
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, and he doesn't.
every single building that says, you
Including,
gotta do the caulking, you gotta do this.
so that includes the schools.
Yes,
Okay, so if that's submitted to the schools, right, then it sounds like it's already happening.
yes.
So then
Yeah.
the question is there a forcing function on the part of the select board to the school committee?
No, they're separate entities.
I understand,
They're
right?
both independent.
I get it, right? But if the school committee is not appropriately addressing the concerns of the town building inspector, what happens?
All right, so but maybe that's the thing. So if we're looking at the charter, maybe in what needs, I'm just gonna spitball here. So is to add something that says, at a minimum, town buildings should all meet the building code standards, blah, 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 blah,
Be kept in good repair.
kept in good repair. kept in good repair. Love that sentence.
Whatever that means.
Well, you could add that first sentence, the responsibility of maintenance and repair of town and buildings and grounds shall be consolidated under the select board. The select and it's, and they must maintain, and they shall maintain good, I mean, that's ambiguous too. How do you define that?
Yeah.
And you fight over good repair and what does that mean? And I think responsibility does that.
There any state laws regarding maintenance of school buildings? Do we know?
But it goes for the town buildings too. Look at the town hall. We're very lucky we have a brand new senior center. Hopefully it's kept in good repair.
Well, apparently there is a law inside our good repair means equipment, et cetera, shall be maintained in a state of repair and condition that meets the requirements specified, right? You know, and
Yeah, I think,
specified under, state, county, whatever, all the applicable laws.
yeah, I think just saying the responsibility, I don't think we need to do any more there. I think it's, it's defined at the state level.
It's clean, safe, and functional, as determined, by pursuant to state laws or whatever they are.
Right, and I'm pretty sure that the DESI has a whole set of regulations about, school quality.
I'm sure.
So I'm wondering, Marla, if this is, the language is, I think we're right about taking out that one sentence. I'm not crazy about the last sentence. But that the problem has more to do with I don't know if the charter can fix the problem we have, which is things fall through the cracks. I don't think charter language is going to change that.
Have you ever met?
To figure out the best.
Have you ever done what this last sentence says?
It is intentioned standards reforms. Yeah, we do it all the time.
Well, then we should leave it.
Should be the school department or the school committee? I would argue that it should be the school committee as the elected responsibles for those buildings.
Right, because that's the equivalent board
Exactly.
to the select board.
And we could very easily just say superintendent, town administrator, figure it out, but
Yeah.
the buck stops somewhere, right?
And if things are slipping through the cracks and they've been directed, but they're still slipping through the cracks, then that sounds like something that goes in a performance review.
Right.
Just saying.
Yep.
And which becomes part of the public record.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so what I have right now is section 5.6, remove line 2, retain 1 and 3. On paragraph 2, keep it there, but change school department in the last line to school committee. Oh, I'm sorry, and that we changed the last line of the first paragraph to shall meet annually instead of from time to time. Any other comments, concerns, questions?
None from me.
Any objections?
Done.
No.
Ray, you're good with this?
I'm
You're
good.
gonna make the presentation to the town meeting. We voted.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, I would hope that, I don't think this is going to solve the problem, but it does make it clear.
Right, so that's the thing. It's two separate things. What lives in this document and then how does it get implemented is a different question. And that's actually gonna be one of robust conversation, I bet, in the public sphere. And that brings us to the end of section 5.
Yay.
Kids, Let me just double check the notes here. Okay, I think we covered all of Michael's comments. Stacks of paper. Okay. Okay, so we are now scheduled so that we're on track because the next meeting we're to schedule to talk about 6, right? Do you have that in front of you, Marla? I don't have that stack in front of me.
Do I have what in front of me?
The list of
At 6,
meetings.
it's finances and fiscal procedures.
Right.
Okay. So just 6.
I think that probably would be enough to keep us busy for an hour. What do you think?
Yeah,
Ray and Andy?
Yep.
yeah. I mean, I'm looking at, because it's the capital improvements in 6 too. Okay. What's the date on that?
Okay, so we're doing Article 6. And the date. All right, today's 14, so July. Well, either 12 or 19.
Or do we have one on it? Let me just check the, oh, the school committee doesn't meet in July, I don't think. So that doesn't matter. Do we have something, do anyone have the, that original calendar?
Right.
I don't, I have no idea where that is right now. 12th and the 19th. And nothing on my calendar here. Does anyone have any preference?
Let me see.
Board of Health is on the, okay. Select Board. Oh, so the night, we should probably do the 12th unless I go away for my birthday. Because if school committee meets, they usually meet this. Actually, let me just look on the calendar right now. Yeah, where are our friends tonight?
Well, I'm wondering, is 5:30 a difficult time for us?
Well, we may have to meet in person. Remember that,
Yeah.
depending on what happens in the vote tomorrow. Select
So does
Board-
that make it 7 then?
What about 6:30? Who's anyone? I'm not going back to my office until the fall, I don't think.
I'm
Anyone
just
there?
wondering about Becky and,
Oh. Oh, yeah,
I'll tell you what, Karen, why don't you poll the group?
okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. And when we get everybody responses as to the best time, if we have to meet in person, wait until after the vote to see if we have to meet in person. And then we'll pick a time. And
Well,
I'll
let me ask you guys, we will have the option always of meeting in person because we're all vaccinated and the emergency will be over. We don't have to meet on Zoom, even if they pass this. Does anyone have a preference whether we meet live or Zoom? Anyone care? No?
Whatever. Either way, don't care.
Ray, Andres, just so you know, I'm only 5 foot tall. And so many people, like, I meet them in person after a year and they're like, you're so little.
Well,
Okay,
what's the
I will
difference
pull the troops. And,
Well, it's funny because I bumped into Lincoln at the town vote. And it was so weird to see him in person and without a mask.
I actually saw somebody at high school graduation that I've been in meetings with every other week for months.
Bless
I
you.
didn't recognize him because he just looked so different in person. Completely different. So it happens.
No, it's nice.
So, all right, so
It's very nice that all this has come to an end, because I was actually at a funeral today, 300 people in a church in downtown Boston.
Oh,
So
my.
I'm sorry at the funeral, but yeah, I went to Joe Norton's wake yesterday and it was very glorious to be able to have that
And I was sorry that I forgot.
change, have that, connection with the folks there.
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that, Marlo. It's a lifelong 50-year friend.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Terrible, terrible.
Well, all right, I will poll the people. We'll meet in July, either the 12th or the 19th, and we'll see what the governor says about meeting. So what was nobody cares whether we're in person or live? Okay.
Flexible.
I think that if we communicate with the rest of the people, they may have an opinion.
Yeah, yeah. So
And we'll
I'll
go with,
I'll
if
put that in
anybody
the
has
poll.
an objection, we'll go with whatever they don't object to,
Okay,
because the rest of us are flexible.
that's
Right.
right. Right.
And I just heard yesterday that people were so upset with how we look on Zoom, they're getting plastic surgery. Plastic surgery, no, this is true, is way up.
No kidding. Oh, I
Yeah.
just figured out how to use the video.
I'm not
filter.
doing it. Can you tell?
Yeah, no, I figured out how to do the video filter like 2 months ago. And that took care of my facelift.
Well, I don't like needles, so I'm not doing Botox.
Yeah, no. All right. Okay, well then I
You'll
will
get to,
ask for this meeting to be called. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second,
Seconded, any opposed? Brianna loves this conversation. All right, so we will adjourn at 6:54 PM adjournment.